Reports available here for anyone's interested in viewing those. Reports and staff initiatives. You step down that end of the table. Dwayne, anything?
Nothing. I got a couple things I'd like to bring up to the board later on, but
Okay.
nothing.
Tim?
Same here.
Okay. Sean, anything to report? Gordon, anything you need to report?
No.
That means we're off to Gary.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A little update on the assessor we're trying to hire. Negotiations are underway. We had 3 finalists. We did have one clear candidate after that, and I guess stay tuned for more information as I pursue negotiations with that candidate. Budget Committee meeting number 7 will be this Thursday, March 2nd. It might be the last one. I'm not sure that they'll finish, but they would like to. They made good progress at last meeting. Julie ran the meeting. Matt couldn't be there because he was in Hollis fighting a fire, but the Budget Committee made good progress that night and got, I think, well over a third of the budget completed in terms of their recommendations. As far as I'm concerned, we could schedule a budget workshop starting next Tuesday night, but if you want to wait until the Budget Committee is truly done, that would either be this coming Thursday or the one after. Certainly plenty that we could be talking about: suggested fire station improvements, sidewalk, health insurance changes, librarian, etc. Since I didn't have any marching orders for a dollar increase or decrease, I've proposed a lot of things, and the budget is up pretty heavily, almost $800,000 over this year, but I also understand that not a lot of those things will be funded. A marijuana update: Tim Neal and Town Planner Lee J. Feldman and I attended an MMA legal workshop today that was packed, standing room only. Drummond and Woodson Law Firm ran that. Suffice to say, we went out of the room with more questions than answers, which is what the situation is right now, with 50 or 60 bills up in Augusta being handled by a separate committee that's just been formed. And I also need to correct a misstatement that I made a while back. I stated that the marijuana question failed by a 55 to 44% margin in Waterboro. That's incorrect. It passed by that margin. I apologize for that error. I had it confused with another question that was about the same split. Once again, the marijuana question number 1 passed in support of legalizing marijuana in Waterboro last November. On the recreation side, I'm happy to report that we're communicating and coordinating with our neighbors to have a casino bus trip to Oxford Casino in a real comfy bus with a bathroom, etc. And Buxton and Hollis are participating, and we think we're going to easily fill the bus so far by the participation so far. And a big thanks to our fire department who helped with some pretty serious mutual aid, along with, I think, 11 other communities for that structure fire in Hollis. And Poland Spring also dumped a couple of tankers full of water. They diverted them from their routes on the road, came over to fill up our little swimming pools, if you will, at the fire scene, which helped a lot. And a final big thank you to Ruth Blake. I know some folks here went on Saturday. I was unable to go, but a thank you for 24 years of service to be our librarian. And she'll be there a little bit into March, but you better say hello and goodbye before the end of March, because after that she'll truly be done. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions, comments? All right, let's move on to old business number 10. This gets back to the discussion we've had now for the past 2-3 meetings with regard to drug program or drug testing, I guess is probably the better way to say it. Kind of stimulated initially the fact that we do now have a piece of equipment within the community that requires a license, that with that license and operating of that equipment requires that individual and individual supervisors, etc., have to be participants in the DOT drug program. That kind of what's kicked us all off. So I think the task a couple of weeks ago was to send Gary and his staff off to take a look at, all right, from a risk perspective, where is this, how many other municipalities of similar size or in the area participate. And I think I know in our packet this week there was a significant amount of information I hope everybody had a chance to digest that a little bit. But I guess I'm gonna toss the baton here to Gary a little bit, or Gary and Matt. I'm not sure which one of you wanna take the lead on that, or David. It's David's employee that's gonna be affected first. Go ahead.
I'll kick it off, and then these gentlemen and the lady can chime in as they see fit. You've got a 2-page memo here that's from Matt and myself, and you also have a 1-page, I guess you'd call it an Excel document for 11 towns that responded. 13 were asked about what they drug test for now. And moving to that, we have Laura Fish to thank, and suffice to say that every one of those 11 towns that responded have the routine CDL testing program for their drivers. I think it's also accurate to say that on the fire and EMS side, none of them do that, mostly because you don't have to. Department of Labor does not require that. And in the memo Matt talks about the numbers in the fire department. We do have a number of CDL drivers in the fire department, but that CDL is not required to drive equipment per Maine Department of Labor standards and the training that our staff receives for being a member of the fire department. The memo goes on to talk about these other communities and to think where we should be in terms of drug testing. We actually make a recommendation several recommendations at the end of this. I hope you've had a chance to look at that. We actually did a motion to that effect that was on the cover sheet for this, and we think that, well, let me just read the motion. The motion would be that fire, EMS, and all other personnel are exempt from random drug testing, that the town administrator is authorized to oversee Public Works DOT random drug testing, and that the town administrator make changes to the personnel policy section 5.2 as needed for Board of Selectmen approval, and that the town administrator require that all appropriate supervisors attend reasonable suspicion training. We think without question the CDL random pool testing has to start. That's required by law. I did find one correction, that I don't have to be tested as a supervisor. I thought I had to, but the town attorney said no. So that's one little change in there. Certainly the reasonable suspicion training for supervisors is something that we need to do, and we will. One thing you did not have in your packet, I do have a draft of CDL testing policy from Pat Dunn, our attorney. I think it's 8 pages long. I don't want to introduce that into the body of the meeting tonight, but you can take that home and use that as a reference. It's pretty extensive when you start doing even just testing for CDLs, the things that you have to do and you have to have in the town policy.
So that 8 pages would be included in our personnel policy?
That's correct. Once we get the final language that you folks are satisfied with, then we would change that to that effect. I've glossed over the memo. I guess I would turn it over to David and Matt for any statements they want to make or answering any of your questions, or I'm happy to answer your questions as well.
Let me ask a question relative to the spreadsheet, and I guess Laura did most of the surveying or whatever. Under the Department of Public Works, they've got CDL / Public Works only. Does that mean that anyone that works within the Public Works Department is also drug tested, or?
No, they fell under the DOT guidelines and have a CDL required license.
So an example is like Berwick, it says CDL / Public Works only. So does that mean only the CDL
Correct.
or whoever in Public Works?
That is required to have a
Okay. So it's not the entire department?
Correct.
Yeah. And under fire and rescue, I don't think anybody, right?
We didn't find anybody. We did 13 towns,
Yeah.
minus 2 that didn't respond.
Okay.
And those both probably contractual towns that didn't to those 2.
So what's the significance of the circle number in the left-hand column?
I think that's Gary's notes, but he was
Oh.
counting the communities
Counting.
as 5, 10, and 13.
Not much.
He was just counting.
5 down, that's 10 down. Okay. I should have looked at what the number was. Okay, so that gives us a, that kind of answered one of the questions of how many, if anyone, around us. And it looks like anybody that has CDL equipment that requires a CDL in the Department of Public Works is in the program. That's what I would glean out of this, correct?
Required to be.
Right. So, well, just because they've got a CDL doesn't mean they got to get in the program, right? They have to have the equipment. They have to be operating the equipment,
Right.
right?
That classification.
So if the municipality didn't own that equipment, then, right, but presumably they're saying that, yes, we have equipment, and yes, our CDL drivers are tested. So I think that's a given, that we know that that's by law, we're gonna have to do that anyway, correct?
Yes.
How many of your 7 employees have a CDL?
How many?
How many of your full-time employees have a CDL?
2 of them.
Do they work elsewhere?
Yes.
So they're in a random pool?
No, oh, not for that, no.
Oh.
No, sorry.
They don't utilize the CDL.
No, we have it, and I'm one of them. But, to go, Dennis, go back to your previous meeting when you asked about some of the risk assessment aspect. We peeled out our numbers, what we have, and out of 54 individuals, 47 are call force and or per diem, with fluctuation of hours and whatnot. So if we back them out of any of the previous conversations as we talked about, that leaves 6 members and then 1 part-time administrative assistant. So if we look from a risk point of view, those individuals, and some of them being shift supervisors, probably riding in an officer's seat rather than driving, respectively, the risk is even lower for those individuals. Now, there will be times when they're driving, and at that point, they're even driving the ambulance on a majority of our calls. So they're in a vehicle that's less than 26,000 pounds to begin with. Just as a point.
So, the third part of this thing, which I guess if you break it down into 3 parts, we've got Department of Public Works, we've got the fire department, I think, which this motion or proposed motion takes care of. The third piece of that motion would be that the supervision in this community should go to awareness or observation in case there is an issue where you presume or you observe somebody that may be operating that or behaving in a manner that might suggest that there's some suspicion, right? So you need to know what the rules and regulations and laws are to back that up.
And what to look for.
Right. So that would take you, Lisa, your captains.
That's what we've identified.
It would take, certainly David,
Yep.
you,
Clint.
Clint, anybody that's in a supervisory role, right? And that's that's the third piece.
Well, you
of it,
got
right?
the other one was, the other department head was your Parks and Rec.
Right, right.
And
Yeah, I would think it would.
whoever's running that at this point.
So anybody that supervises people would be exposed to those requirements, right?
And if you went deep into the Parks and Rec, that could be quite a few people over time. We would start with this 6 to 10, for the first round, find out when these classes are, and get tapped into the.
And this is, I would assume MMA is someone, they might contract it out, but. there's a-
MDOL puts the program on.
Okay.
The Safety Works, is it through them?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, maybe our labor.
So the letter that came from, it's the 2-page letter from Gary and Matt, or Matt and Gary, the conclusion on this, or recommendation conclusion, which is last 4 or 5 paragraphs is really boiled down into this recommended motion, correct?
Yes.
And you've had the discussion with Pat, right? Pat, no?
Not about that motion, but about the policy,
No, no,
which,
yeah. Okay, but I mean, relative to, that's sufficient to protect us, I guess, going forward from, I mean, we can always add to it, right? But that's the minimum.
She
that we
provided
should-
it, correct?
yes.
Any questions, comments, guys?
After going through this a day ago, to me, just without any input, it makes sense that we have a probable cause testing program, and that needs to be, I think, needs to be a part of our personnel policy, and including training of people who are overseeing staff. And it does not make sense to go with the random or arbitrary testing. That just seems very, very complicated. It seems like it'd be probably expensive. And I certainly don't see it as having a great deal of effect on in being able to say we will never have a person under the influence working in Waterboro at any time. I don't think that's going to do anything. So my thought is we need a probable cause testing, and I thought that I was impressed with the observation behavior checklist and the non-assessment. Anyway, I think the checklist was, I thought, and the policy that was written made sense to me, so I don't know where we are in being able to.
Well, let me just, any other questions, comments from the table, Tim?
Well, it's my understanding that even now with existing employees, if you suspect that they're under the influence of drugs, that you can take them in to be tested. So of course the same would apply to new employees. So in effect, I think we have what you're talking about in place. So with the training for the managers to spot that type of behavior, I think we're well on the way to having that part of it contained.
Do all employees, though, know if they are asked for drug testing, drug and alcohol testing? Do they know how it's gonna come down? What's gonna happen? What happens if they refuse? Does everybody know that?
I think if you bring.
Has
up a
everybody
good
been
point,
trained?
You gotta bring up, if you're gonna do that, even though it may very well be referenced in the current personnel policy, I think the expectation is that people should understand what the ramifications and what the process would be if in fact they were found suspect, right?
Yeah.
This is what's gonna happen, so I think they have a right to understand
Yeah, I
that.
think you're getting,
It's already in the personnel policy
I can
now.
say it's in the personnel policy now, but I think John's getting tied up between alcohol and drugs. And the alcohol is gone in 6 and 8 hours. The drugs are gonna stay in your body for up to 14 days. So,
Not at inherent levels.
right, but it's gonna show up in a test that when you're taken in for a drug test, it's a whole different test than the alcohol test. The alcohol test, you're gonna breathe into a machine, and within seconds, that girl is going to have a tape, and it's gonna show whether you've got any alcohol at all in your body. Whereas a drug test is gonna be sent out in the Midwest somewhere and tested, and you'll have the results in 10 days.
Yeah. On the other hand, if you are a supervisor and you see erratic behavior, and you say, okay, I want this person tested, whether I smell alcohol, I'm not sure, I want this person tested for drugs and for alcohol, because, and then if they come in positive for a drug, for let's say marijuana, then it gets into the question of can we prove that they were under the influence at that time? You know, and I don't know how that goes as far as. I think that's prima facie evidence is that the behavior aspect of it, and then the testing is backs that up. So
That program, the training program, the impairment detection for supervisors, will be designed to identify those behavioral issues, designed to show the supervisor that there are problems that need to be potentially looked at, and determine if there is impairment or under the influence of some type of intoxicating liquor or other type of drugs. If we change our policy from what it says in, I believe, Section 5.2, Gary?
Yes.
Under Section 5.2, then we need to follow the Maine Department of Labor's guidelines for the establishment of a testing program, which you had mentioned a minute ago. A probable cause testing policy is different than what she's mentioning there. We are perfectly fine to institute a CDL DOT program because it's required by federal law under the program. That's what she drafted. If we deviate that, then we need to follow those same guidelines to go into the testing process, which is 16 to 20 pages long.
Yeah, but I'm not suggesting that you just go putting another 10 or 12 pages in the personnel thing. I think if we're going to train management and supervision in this community to be able to detect when there's suspect, okay, then the employees within this community have a right to know what happens when this, what is the procedure that takes place, okay? And if that's if we just reference the DOL, right, procedure, that's fine, but they have a right to understand and read that and know that, oh, if I come in here and Gary thinks that I'm under the influence, he's first going to have to go get somebody else to confirm that, right? And then the expectation is I'm going to get asked to go either blow in a tube or be in a car, basically, right? So, but the employees have a right to understand what that is, and so I think it's just a matter of
Putting that in the language of...
right. But I don't think we need to put a whole litany
Yes.
of stuff in there. If we're going to test to the Department of Labor's standard for suspected, right, then I think
we need to validate whether we can legally do that for
Okay.
other employees.
But whatever that is, I think the employees have a right to see what that document is if we reference that, or whatever the procedure is if we reference that.
Is there like a yearly review of personnel policy, or just when they first come in?
For employees,
Yeah.
we...
So a lot of places have you review it each year and initially.
Yeah, probably
Just
is not a bad idea to.
I think suffice to say, when we get done, to John's point, is that whenever we get done doing whatever you folks decide, there's going to be some changes in the text in here. If you read Section 5.2 right now, it's pretty generic. It talks in glittering generalities, if you will, and I think we need some more specifics in there that specifically tells the employee what staff will or will not be doing to that.
But, and I think you've got to set up some type of a program. You either get 2 or 5 days off, or you get reprimanded or written warning and then 2 days off or 5 days off, whatever. Or you have to go for counseling and get straightened out before you can come back onto the job site.
So there are some
There are
consequences.
Some, yes.
But the question is, how do we have that determination up front? So,
It's got to be in the personnel policy
Well-
somewhere, but you've got to determine what and who's going to supply the funds to do this.
because
So,
even if you use the verbiage that Pat supplied in the 2-page or 3 or 8-page document that she supplied, that won't cover us for the rest of the employees.
Understand that.
Right.
So if we all go to, the supervisors all go to the training today, and we suspect employee X is impaired, we don't have, there's not, you can go home, send them home with the suspicion of. There is no mechanism right now that you can test that individual, because that's a huge process, and that's where you have to develop it, that's where that other process comes into, and we don't have that today.
So that's the piece that'll have to
Lisa,
be worked out, but once that's worked out, then that's, I mean,
But that,
once we put this CDL piece in, any one of Dave's crew that has CDL has to understand, this is what I have to go through, okay? And this is the ramifications should I be tested, and I'm found, and guess what? There's only so many strikes, and then you're out. So, but that's all, they have to be aware of that going into the program, that is a jeopardy now that they have, call it a jeopardy, but that's a result of not complying with the law.
when we first started talking about this, we had the previous Public Works and then David, but I thought when we left here that all of the thoughts was headed towards anybody that was running town equipment, whether they were CDL or not, should be in this testing program, because we don't need somebody down to the dump or the backhoe operator running the backhoe up and down the road. It was talked that these pieces of equipment was plenty dangerous enough working in our public traffic type deals, whether it's down to the dump or it's running backhoe or the ton truck or whatever, as far as the public works. And if you're requiring the public works, this would be all town-owned equipment that's being worked within the public works director's eyes, and that includes the dump and whatnot.
Yeah, see,
We're
to me, I
getting more
think,
and more equipment down to the dump that's running in around traffic, and this is what we're trying to protect, is our own self here and the public's safety.
yeah, and I think that may very well come, I think that the first step here is let's get the program that we're required to have under, because if we decide to include everyone in that department,
That's a different one.
we're gonna have a significantly different procedure that's gonna encompass all of those folks. So I think as an initial step, we have a problem right now. We have a piece of equipment, and we've got a requirement, so we need to move on and get that, so that everybody is up and running and legal within the shortest amount of time,
and just so you know, the reason we didn't give you any other samplings of some of the conversations is because the conversation I think was Andrea from MBUL. On the front of item 10 on the agenda, 10A, I'm sorry, the bottom section, considerations that must be completed during the development of an employee testing policy. Those steps need to be followed, and without referencing a policy in writing, we haven't solicited input from 10 employees, and because they have to be in the development process for this. So we haven't solicited that, we weren't even part of it. We haven't made notification to the Maine Department of Labor of the intent. And with that also, there's periods for these employees that are impacted that they have to submit letters to the Maine Department of Labor as well. So it's just a process, and that's why we didn't put that in there, because we didn't want to
yeah, because
imply that we were.
because that's not gonna be as simple as saying, hey, we have a DOT requirement.
Correct.
Now we're gonna say, we're gonna impose a bigger requirement, and this is how it's gonna work, right? So I think that's the big piece to,
So Gary, what do you need from this board to move on?
Well, I think we captured that in the motion. If the board wants to go farther, like what Dwayne's saying, down the road, we can certainly do that. It's another process that's going to take a lot more time, like what Matt just said. But for right now, we need to do CDL, I think, in reasonable suspicion. right off here, because we're required to. And then we can change the policy anytime we want, if you folks want to go that far in drug testing.
Dave?
When we do get this all worked out here, should we, or board, should we have each employee, after they're explained the new regulations and the way we're going to approach this, should they sign this personnel policy?
Yes.
No one's saying that they understand.
I think the more requirements you put into this policy, the requirement to have it reviewed on an annual basis, where they sign and they say, yes, I did review the personnel policy on this date, that becomes more and more important. You can't go 3, 4, 5 years and say, well, you read the policy back in 2007, you knew it was in it then, right? So it becomes more and more of a pressing issue that there's an annual review. And if you're gonna add it, I think you get everybody in the room and you start saying, okay, these are the things that we're adding. Just like the observation, if we're now gonna train the leadership in the operations into this business to be observant, then the employees need to understand what the ramifications are of that.
We also have to realize, and I'm sure we all do, that if there ever were an accident, hopefully there never will be, somebody is going to come forward and ask for a test of some
Absolutely.
sort. It doesn't matter who you are or what your CDL or what your license is. That'll be an automatic.
I was gonna say, if that backhoe's going up the road, or the ton truck, or
That's
the
right.
Bobcat hits a car over there to the dump,
Any,
any of that can
We're all
automatically,
covered
especially
by
depending on
some
how bad somebody's
regulations that
hurt.
require that test, so.
It's just, I think it's interesting that, you query 13 municipalities, 11 come back, and not a one of them has, and from Sanford to Standish to Gorham to, none of them have anyone in a pool other than CDL drivers. So part of that is going to be driven to the fact that once you do that, you create something larger than that, it is an immense program to manage.
Very good.
So, yeah.
I will to,
Well, let me just, Gordon, do you have any comments?
I think that the yearly review, generally speaking, if an employee is evaluated by a supervisor every year, the last question on an evaluation form is, did they go over this? And then they sign it, because they usually have to sign that they either concur with the review or they don't, or, and they can make some comment as to what they didn't like about the review. Generally speaking, I don't know what the forms look like right now that you evaluate your employees on, but generally that's part of it. And my recollection is the same as Dwayne's on this one, that it would be, covering all aspects of it. But I think Dennis is right too, that we gotta
start somewhere.
We got to start somewhere, and that mandatory thing is, I think, the smart move.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Department of Labor thing of everything that's going to be included in the program, just the explanation of what it is 11 pages long. That's not the procedure. That's just the things that the steps that you got to ensure. So it's not going to be, and then I'm not saying we shouldn't, if the risk outweighs then it's something that we look to incorporate in the future, but it's not going to be an easy task. And my guess is, if you go to any one of those other municipalities, they'll tell you that's why they don't do it.
Well, I think it
Well,
becomes contractual too
your-
from some of the other.
Your fire
large
department
ones.
unions that are in these bigger cities have fought this for years, and I was told that by.
And we tried, and that's why we tried to limit some of those other ones,
Right.
to have a mix. But
And the unions have kept this drug testing out of the fire department.
Or it kept it out of the Public Works Department, other than CDLs
Yeah.
too, so. All right, anything else on that end?
Just one quick point, backing up from what David said. You said about an employee reading the policy and understanding it. Back up many weeks or possibly a few months, they're going to be involved in participating in the creation and the understanding of the initial language, or they'll at least be given it to comment on.
Yeah.
And there'll be a formal comment period too. So.
But each year they should sign off.
Sure.
I just signed off the other day that the state of Maine is drug-free, and each employee had to sign off one day this week, yesterday, actually, that
Right.
we agreed with the policy.
In reading this material over, it was interesting to note that there should be something in the policy that covers employees that we subcontract with. And I know that the Public Works a lot of times will hire dump truck drivers, or I think when they're acting as an agent of the town, they then become an employee of the town.
No, the company covers them.
No, but all of those dump truck drivers have to
They're in the
do
drug
the
pool.
random pool.
But I think most of that takes place by the words in the contract have to address that.
Yeah, that's what it says in here somewhere.
All right, John, you want to make that
Sure.
motion?
I will move that fire and EMS and all other personnel are exempt from random drug testing, and that the town administrator is authorized to oversee DPW and DOT random drug testing, that the town administrator make changes to the personnel policy, section 5.2, as needed for the Board of Selectmen approval, and the town administrator require that all appropriate supervisors attend reasonable suspicion testing, training.
Do I have a second to that?
I'll second that.
Any discussion on that motion? Sensing none, all those in favor? Opposed? 4-1.
4-1.
All right, so you will bring any revisions back to us anyway. We need to approve those. And then
Yes.
personnel policy.
And you can leave tonight with the draft from Pat if you want to take one. They're right here for your reading pleasure at home.
Oh.
We'll get started inserting that into the document as well.
All right, let's jump back to new business 9A. Discuss and vote the requests.
Thank you.
To request planning board's input on rezoning of North Waterboro property AR zone to village zone. I asked Gary to kind of put this back on the agenda. Sean and Chris Dennis came in and they made an initial request to include the balance of their property in the village zone. We've been kind of all around, should there be a contract, should there this be that, and I think so as not to hold those guys hostage with anything, we should at least, go forward and initiate this thing. And, Tim, I know you came up with, the planning board now has a single page application to request this, so I would suggest that we get that to Sean and company and say, make this request, and it'll go to the planning board, and then it'll ultimately come back to this board anyway.
Can I
Yes.
clarify a little bit, back up a little bit in history for the benefit of folks at home and maybe some of the board members here? Remember, we had that discussion of contract zone. Do we need to do a contract zone out there? Because of what the comp plan says or doesn't say. I met with Lee J. We talked for quite a while. I looked at all the documents that he had examined when he came up with his suggestion that he thought that the village zone in North Waterboro, per the comp plan, should be different than the other village zones. I can see how he came to that conclusion, or philosophy, if you will, philosophy conclusion. One of the documents he used is referenced in the comp plan, but it's not part of the comp plan. It was a study done by an outside graduate student group that provided some information. It talks about a more agrarian or agricultural zone up there, and that's fine if we want to do that. We also had input from at least 3 of the 2020 committee members, and none of them had any memory at all that the purpose of the comp plan was specifically to have different village zones. So I think it's pretty clear that the vague nature of the comp plan can lead us to have the same village zones continuing throughout the town if we want to do that. Because it isn't crystal clear that the comp plan says thou shalt make this one different. It doesn't say that. So the back part of the property here, if you're looking at your 11 by 17 map of that property in North Waterboro, the westerly corner of that that's in the AR zone and not in the village is the section of the Dennis and Shoemaker property that they're asking be extended to the village zone. That's the issue that's before us tonight on this agenda item.
And the planning board has a process
Yes.
that they've approved, and we've approved, that makes these requests or provides a vehicle for this kind of a request. So my suggestion is that we pass that on to Dennis and Shoemaker and get it filled out. The other thing that we might want to pass along to the planning board is we think the village zone in North Waterboro probably should encompass much more property than what it currently does. That being said, the request from Sean and Chris should not be held hostage until...
This is a shoestring
Right.
rezoning, and it's spot zoning is the word that I wanted to use. This is spot zoning. You look at that Route 5 corridor right from Silas Brown Road to the Limerick Bridge, and look at the businesses you have going up through there, and that is nothing but a village zone, 1,000 feet either side of Route 5. You've got multi-family homes, you've got home businesses, you've got the church, you've got all kinds of businesses. I think I counted at one point 17 businesses from Silas Brown to the Limerick Bridge at this point. And there may be more than that. Either home occupations or businesses with two or more employees.
So let's go ahead, Tim.
I was just going to say, like you said, that not to overcomplicate this, all of this came out of that lot behind JD's that we rezoned. It took 3 years. And part of the reason was the board decided to look at the whole zone. All they wanted was to change one zone. I think this is a simple request. It shouldn't be tied in with any of their other plans. I think it should go to the planning board. I would make that as a motion if we need it. And there is a change of zone form that's available. You can search on the website. And there is a $1,000 fee for that change of zone.
Yeah, because they're going to change the maps and all that stuff.
And there's staff time that we want to recover, and that's why it was put on there.
I'm just,
Can they justify that whole cost? Because they can't charge, I'm just wondering, and I went through that and went through the attorneys and all of that. If they can justify the whole $1,000, then it's feasible to charge it. But if they can't justify all of it, then they can't charge it. You can't charge more than the actual cost on that.
I'm not sure how that works. It was raised by the selectmen when they approved it.
I think that's the fee that's associated with the thing, but anyway, we can sort that out. And I don't think we need to make a motion at this point, Tim. I think it's a matter of
Just send it on.
just we'll pass it on to John. You had a
I
question?
just want to see that I'm hearing this correctly. If you add on, if you just put the, make the village zone to conform to the Dennis and Shoemaker property spot zoning, and otherwise, is there a need to follow Route 5 further north and further south?
Well,
and make it, because that makes sense for village zoning, and get away from,
well,
This is a
property.
request.
right, they've made a request,
Yeah.
okay, to include the balance of their property in the village zone,
Yep,
all right? So, and even though one might say, well, okay, that's kind of like spot zoning or whatever the case may be, they've requested that, hey, 2/3 of my lot's in
Yep.
village, I want the rest of it in village.
well, I understand
Right.
what they want.
But to say, and this may very well mean that the village zone goes all the way to the bridge, eventually, okay? They're not interested in that, and their request shouldn't be held hostage to the planning board's future changing of zones on Route 5. So, couple, 3 years ago, there was a provision in the zoning that was changed that allows an individual come in and make a zone request for a piece of property. And I guess that's what we're saying is let's get them to go back and fill out that application,
Okay,
all right? It'll take care of their stuff. At the same time, I think the planning board has in front of them the whole litany of changes to village
so
zones.
the planning board could come out and increase the zone here, but it may not be a little piece on that property. It might come out.
If the village, if they said, let's bump this back another 1,000 feet,
Yeah.
it does what they've
And
requested.
and come out with a rationale for it, then we vote for the rationale rather than for
Right.
a specific request.
Okay?
Okay.
So I think we
Got it.
just tee it back to them. And if that already exists, then that's what they should be working on.
Okay.
Now, whether or not that existed when Sean initially talked about this a year ago, but I guess it did,
It
right?
did. I had a record of the meeting where you guys approved it. It was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, okay.
I can give you that information if you need it.
Now, it's gotta be in the,
They had to
I
be-
think the
Planning.
form is
I got
probably
one
dated
before.
too.
okay? Is everybody good with that?
Question. Is there a name for that procedure that Tim's referring to, a form that?
It's a, yeah,
Change
Change
of
of
zone
zone.
form.
Request for change of zone.
Just search on the website, town site for change of zone form and it'll come right up.
Thank you.
all right? Back to the future. All right, under new business, item B, discuss possible vote of location for a tax increment financing district.
Well, Chuck Morgan and Lee J. Feldman, contract planner and contract economic development consultant, and I took a ride for, I don't know what it was, a good couple hours anyway. And the map before you was what we're suggesting is our initial proposal for where this TIF district, this tax increment financing district would be. Very briefly, just remember that this doesn't change the taxes that we collect on a property in terms of the dollars that come to the town. What it does is it shelters that new development valuation and keeps our revenue sharing from going down, our educational funding from going down, and our county taxes from going up. So that's the main reason for considering a TIF district, to shelter that development, so it betters your bottom line. We're going from Southern Maine Healthcare to the western side, up behind JD's, the Malone piece that butts up to the transfer station piece, coming back out on Route 5, going up to the power lines, crossing over by the field that is before the diner, going up behind those two large pieces of property, out behind Dunkin' Donuts, Subway, Wade Junkin's house, and Hannaford Brothers, and connecting back over behind Woodson's and Southern Maine Healthcare again. It's an irregular form polygon here. We purposely cut out some of the residential areas, but not all. For instance, Mr. Junkins is in the middle of this, and it really doesn't affect his residential property at all. But if that should ever be developed or changed into something else, it would be in the TIF district. We can exclude those residential ones if we want to, but we did not for the purposes of the discussion here. We thought we would keep the polygon a little larger and more globular, if you will, to start with, and then we could start tossing things out if we want. Not looking for a decision on this, but this is just the first blush of what we
Can you
think.
take more than one of these pieces? Can you go down 202 and include that piece down?
Oh, yeah, we can have multiple districts
Well-
all over town.
To a point.
Well, you've got a, you've got a piece of property, Dayfield to Straw Mill Brook Road, that is very developable. And if the right people came in, that's got town water and all of that right there too. And that piece of property, I think, ought to be included in your TIF if you're looking for development.
We can have more than one TIF zone, though, right?
Yes.
You can have up to 5% of your land mass.
Yeah. So maybe that's a good thought for a second TIF zone. It's the Dayfield and the Dance Academy and the storage site. But I would like to see this one here extended down 202 a little bit to encompass the garage. I can't think of his name right off the top.
Oh, the new place that's being built?
No. Bakers.
Bakers?
Bakers, yeah, Bakers, and then on the opposite side, you got the driving range for the golf course and the wood sales, and then just a little bit further up, you've got Massabesic Health sources. I think that those ought to be included in that TIF area.
So I think we want to workshop those ideas. I think we do that at your convenience, and then make sure Lee J. and/or Chuck
I
are
mean,
here for that.
if you really look at it, let's stay away from the other villages for a minute and just say, we start with this here. However, maybe we do go south on 202 and encompass, because it's not, if you're gonna look at all the way through Massabesic Health Resources, because who knows what the rest of that land might be used as,
I would say,
then you might as well go to the
You might,
Dayfield
yeah.
and all the way to the Straw Mill Brook Road.
the other side of the road.
And the other side of the road,
The other side of the road's only, what is that, 1,500 feet at the max into conservation.
right. But you've
Probably
got,
less than
you've
that,
got
probably closer to
the
500.
Heritage Building, which, again, it's already there, across from Straw Mill Brook Road. So,
He's still got some land to develop
Right, so
there,
you-
so.
so that might be maybe a better additional. you
So
got-
we should jump up another 5,000 feet and extend the property down to Straw Mill.
I
the
guess
next version?
I would be interested to look at what that does.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would include Victor Wright's property and that photography business down in there.
There's a couple ways to do this. One is to send this back to the drawing board, or another is to say, okay, this is step one,
You know,
and okay this, and then realize that we're gonna be looking at extending this down Route 202. And say, okay, just for the sake of getting started, we're ready, we got something in front of us, we can do that, and then it's gonna be easier in a way the next time, because we understand the concept now.
So how about going east on 202? Are we okay with the extent that we have here now?
As long as that includes that,
We've gone to the town line here, so.
yeah, well, see, I think
Maybe good to go to the Jellison Road.
I think if you go, because I'm not sure what happens to the old, no, the old Leon, cross,
I think that ought to be included in there
right,
because
because
that's
that's,
gonna be developed. at
that
some
could be a
point.
potential,
Where are you talking?
The Leon property.
Oh, Ritzy's house?
Yeah,
It's adjacent to the
there's
medical
20-some
building.
acres there.
and there's still that other lot that they have the farm stand on that,
So the
That
piece you're
extends
talking
way
about,
back to the brook and the
Right.
railroad. Yeah.
see this piece
I
here?
think so, I'd have to look at the town map, but yeah.
This piece here is the, let's see, Bennett Hill. This piece is, I think, Yeah, I think it goes all the way back to, no, I know
It
it goes back to
on
the
the other
railroad.
side of the railroad tracks, but I'm not sure if she's.
So you know, then you could pick up, that's an individual house, that's a house, but you also have the post office on the other side of the road that.
All right, so we'll extend down to Straw Mill Brook Road. We'll put some labels on some of those businesses for frame of reference and bring it back.
Could I say something? I think we should keep in mind that someday this increased valuation is going to come back onto the tax rolls. Could be 20, 25 years, just like Hollis just increased their tip for Poland Springs. So I don't know what we're going to do with the proceeds from this, but I think it should be something that the future residents of Waterboro are going to look at and think, yeah, this was worth this big hike in our taxes, because that's what's going to happen. When this comes off of TIF, all that increased valuation comes back onto our tax rates, correct?
It goes back into the state valuation, which could reduce your revenue sharing, reduce your school funding, increase your county tax.
The town's valuation's gonna.
All the things that we're deferring by doing this
Right.
will come
Yeah.
back.
At 9 o'clock tonight, you may see that your town taxes are gonna go up, because the president's gonna take a lot of that state funding away, which is gonna dwindle down to the town. So stay tuned at 9.
Trickle down.
We don't need to go there yet. Okay, more to come on this. This is an initial pass.
Yep, thank you.
Give it at least a good shot, and we'll go from there. Okay, initial discussions on preparation for the June 20 referendum. Ask Gary, and we've had some discussions of, you know, in order for this to reach the masses of what we're attempting to do here, we need to do some work. And, you know, it's up to us to now, we took the initiative to get the petition signed. We need to do the work to say, this is why it's in the best interest of the municipality to do this. So we need to put together a quote-unquote marketing plan, if you will, that we're gonna go to the voters with. If not, everybody's just gonna say, what does this mean, right? So I at least wanted to start the initial dialogue of what it is that we need to do, and any suggestions. Certainly we can go back up to Saco River, TV, and get a PSA done. I think it would have to be a little more in detail. That was kind of, the one they did for the fire barn was nice, but it wasn't very descriptive when it came down to, you know, this is what it's going to do. So I think that's an alternative. Certainly we need to leverage the advertising in the local papers and whatnot. So I think it's an initiative that the board has kind of kicked off here, and it's up to us to make sure that people are educated on what it means. So.
I had a person ask me today, he said, you know, are we going to address this? And, because he said, what are the positives and negatives of each side? And, you know, that's up to the individual people. We all have a little bit different view of that possibly, but it might be good to write a couple of short essays for the paper on that, so people can say, okay, this is this person's view, this is this person's view, and get an idea that, okay, I think by having a referendum, you're going to get more people voting, and the question is is there a downside to that? So, I think a few short essays to the paper would be good.
So what I want to do, you know, I think if everybody can think about this, and at the next meeting, we'll just do a real quick brainstorming of these are the things that we think will work, and then I think we break it out and determine this is the approach that we're going to take, or approaches that we're going to take.
So we'll do ads as a group.
Yeah, I mean, to me, you know, it's the board, we started this initiative. Certainly there's people that will support it, and there's certainly people that, as you know, you two know, while we were collecting signatures that, well, you everybody knows, I guess, on the table here, that some people said, no, I love town meeting, because some of them never been.
Yeah, I was gonna
I've
say,
never seen them there anyway,
and
but
then they tell us why they were too busy to go.
Yeah, so, anyway, but we need to now move forward with it, so.
You want anything from staff, Dennis? And
I think let's see what everybody, our recommendations are, and then staff can kind of start to pull some of that stuff together.
Is it a good idea to have one of those, what is it, monkey surveys there on our,
Survey Monkey.
yeah, on our website? Because those are free.
Yeah, I think we could do that as well, so. So if you can come back at the next meeting and we'll just revisit it and just for ideas, and then we can formulate a strategy going forward. Anything else?
Just to back up a little bit, it was at the March 10th, 2015 meeting of the Selectmen that you voted on the change of zone, so
right.
just shy of 2 years.
Okay.
Thank you.
the form, you mean? Is that what you're
We
talking
voted on the form, yes. Or actually, the Selectmen.
All right, we've got old business done. Other discuss the vote to approve the minutes of the February 14th meeting.
so moved.
Second, sir.
All those in favor? Opposed?
I got a couple things, Dennis,
Yeah.
before we close.
Yeah. Go.
We got a review for Gary that's due in March.
Mm-hmm.
We need to think about that between now and the end of March. And David's left, but my thought is that that old Alfred Road ought to be posted and permanent posted for weight. I run 2 weeks ago, middle of the night, back and forth to Alfred to pick up a snowplow truck, and you would be amazed to the water trucks that came across that truck while I was going to Alfred as the storm started 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And you would be amazed at 3 and 4 o'clock how many chip trucks are headed across the old Alfred Road. It's, if you're out in the middle of the night, it's worth sitting over there just to watch the trucks that we've got pounding over that old Alfred Road. And that pavement is taking a beating, and it's gonna take more of a beating, but
Do we have a right to post the road? We maintain
Yeah.
it.
no, it's the town of Waterboro's duties to take care of that road, and it's our duties to post it.
Except for the major pavement or reconstruction.
Major reconstruction, not pavement.
You sure?
Yep. That was turned over to the town of Waterboro, hands down, boom. If the state was gonna reconstruct it, it would mean that it was
Yeah, because they weren't,
gravel,
they weren't even
sidewalks,
gonna
or
repave it.
anything, yeah.
We
And
raised,
that was the deal that Doug made with the state, that it was repaved and ditched before we took ownership of it.
if that's what you want to call what they did.
Yeah,
And they did the ditching, but they put lipstick on the road.
absolutely.
All right, so,
I'll double check that.
But
We probably need to get an audience with them.
there's a
Sooner rather than
there's a
later.
procedure that's gotta be done, and there's a public hearing or two that's gotta be held. I mean, it's gonna take 6 months to post that road, other than this time of year with a temporary post and a weight limit, but
I see he's posted the roads.
most all the roads have now been posted.
And there's, and it was in the Townsman or something that there's been a number of changes to the local posting that exempt construction.
For vetting, for farm animals.
Right.
We could notify the water place too.
Right.
Well,
Because,
they're not supposed to be coming down here.
no, they're not, and if you they were very receptive at that meeting that I went to several months ago. And I think that if we just let them know, you know, that this is taking place, that they can be a little more cognizant of.
Well, if we post that road,
The-
they're not gonna go
The
down that
night that
road.
I came out about 3 o'clock, there was 3 water trucks coming across the townhouse road and went right straight across, and I had to wait over here to the stop sign for those trucks to go through, because they had the green light, and I waited at the stop sign to, and
They were coming, they were
they
going
was
to
coming
the plant.
from the plant over across,
From the plant.
yeah.
So did they say Poland Spring on them? Is that how you
No,
knew they?
no, you could tell
They
they was
contract
loaded,
all that out.
yeah.
And they go by GPS too, they don't know where
Yeah.
they are, they
Yeah.
just follow the GPS.
And they may have been trying to get out of state before the storm hit, but,
You know, all you gotta do is ask Dave, who lives on Killick Street, how many trucks used to go up there, because they thought it was Killick Road.
Or Killick Farm Road. Yeah.
That's what killed it, and that's all they needed.
Anything else?
And then they tried to go around the cul-de-sac, that was fun.
Anything else?
It wasn't happening.
All right, how about this?
no, I got one more,
Yeah,
fence up to the lake,
yeah, so,
before we do anything with that,
Where are you?
the fence at the lake,
At Rogers Place?
yes.
Yeah.
I believe that that is in town or state right of way, which the state deeded over everything to the town. That fence, with no doubt in my mind, is in the town's right of way. That building that's sitting up there at the end of that fence is definitely in the right of way, because in 1976 or 77, the state gave a fellow permission to put a hot dog stand, and that was grassed in, and there was no ownership to that grass that belonged to that camp. That is still the right of way, and before we do anything for the fence, we need to find out where our right of way is. The building, when it came into us in 1983 or 4 to the planning board, they tore the restaurant down. They could not have the front steps because the steps was in the state right of way. That building-
and that drawing, we got a picture of that drawing, right? It shows
Yes.
everything.
So the fence has been put probably 8 to 10 feet over above the right of way. And if we own the fence, we don't need to repair it.
All right,
Can I
yep,
just maybe fill in for purposes here of everybody? Roger Buffard called, and his fence that's right next to his house that used to be Brunetti's Restaurant has been damaged by the snowbanking there. No question about it. The plow did some damage to it. So that's what we're talking about right here. I've seen it. It's minimal. But I think Dwayne raises a good issue that we should be able to solve with all the work we did for the court case. And what we should do from here.
okay. All right, week's action list, I think you've got marching orders on the drug thing there, right? It's gonna be done. and,
Yes.
Agenda items, the next go around. We need to get, Gary and I talked briefly, ATV Club. Said that if everything went well on Daring Ridge Road, that they would propose an ordinance, coming in about 3 months. All those trails are gonna open. If we don't have something in place on a more permanent basis, then we're gonna be doing the same thing we did last year, you know, doing something makeshift. So we oughta make contact with them and say, because I think we've got 4 or 5 different ordinances that could be easily rewritten for Waterboro, right?
Rewritten for ATV travel?
Yeah,
It won't be hard to come up with one.
right.
I don't know the ones you're referring to, but.
Well, when we had this big discussion, there were 2, 3 that we had here one night, that was in the packet. One was from Rangeley, one
Oh,
was
from other communities?
Yeah, yeah,
you're talking-
yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
Sure, yep.
Is it safe to assume there'll be public hearings before anything like that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that'll be.
Yeah, we
Yeah, promised them that
we can't institute an ordinance unless it's an emergency without having public hearing.
I know we're gonna generate some discussion from people that live up there, because they bent my ear about the deterioration of the road, because they weren't.
Well, I think once it got posted, I think everybody rode on the road. I think it was all the damage that was done before they was posted.
The only comment that Doug had made to me was that we should have had them put an apron up there when they come out of the Bennett Hill Road, Bennett Hill Road, where they come off the trail onto the hot top, so that they wasn't turning the dirt out.
And I'd prefer to, even if David can work something with the guys that stripe the road, I'd like to see them stripe the road. At least that says this is the travel path, right? It's not the whole road.
I did a survey of those residents last January. What I'd like to do is bring the results in, say under correspondence, for our next meeting, and I'll have a copy for everybody.
Okay.
Are we having a meeting on 3/7 for budget? Is that official? Or?
I was just suggesting it, so not unless you folks
I just
decide.
don't want to miss it.
Well, are they ready? I guess is the.
They're not done. There's no guarantee that they will be done this Thursday.
Okay.
There are plenty of things that we could start on, but you may want to procedurally wait until they're done. That's up to you.
Okay.
Remember, these things that I'm suggesting, Matt and I are suggesting, is about $300,000 of suggested projects in CIP for a fire station. That includes $100,000 for a water line. So those things alone could take a considerable amount of time, whether they should be in or out.
Yeah, and what I want to make sure is that we have a back and forth, so if we make a decision, that we at least get back to them, so that we don't go through what we did last town meeting with them going, well, we didn't know
need
they
a couple
changed it.
meetings with them to go final and.
So it would be nice if they had, or if they were 90% done, and then we could start to
Okay,
have some.
then I would suggest we not meet Tuesday night unless you have the burning desire to.
All right, anything else anybody wants to add to the agenda? If not, I'm sure that something will come up here. Items needing signatures is the minutes of the 14th meeting. We were still waiting a couple of signatures on those maps, right?
I think you're the only one that hasn't done it.
I signed it tonight.
Oh, okay, it's all done.
I haven't signed the second set that they brought, so.
Those there?
All that being said and done, I would
I'll be in tomorrow.
I would entertain a motion to
So
adjourn.
moved, Dennis.
Been moved, do I have a second? All those in favor? Opposed? Good night, Irene.
7:17 p.m.